Welcome, everybody, to today's Friction Points. Very excited to have you all here. Many of you are return guests with us that come to check out what we have going on, and I'm very excited in so many different ways, though. But today is the end of quote unquote season 1 of Friction Points. So we went in it fast and furious, 2 a week. Bringing y'all some really great conversations, but we're not going to take a break, really. So we're going to be back on July 9th. And then we are going to move this to 1 a week. So you'll see us on Thursdays at 10 a.m. And we have some really, really great things that are going to be integrated into our Friction Points. We're going to have some follow-up on conversations we had in May and June. And all of this is going to lead us up to the underground imperative at Money 2020 in Las Vegas. And just hold on to your virtual pants, because that one's going to be a doozy, and we've got some really great things planned. So hopefully you have Sunday, October 18th open to join us in Las Vegas for a half-day marathon of just crazy, crazy thought leadership. So with that, I am very excited to cap our season 1 today with a conversation that I think kind of wraps everything up into what we've been talking about and takes us to the next step. And so we're going to frame it around kind of one topic, which is it's something that large credit unions, small credit unions, all credit unions have to do. The larger credit unions maybe have teams, smaller credit unions, the CEOs do not, so they're taking care of it. But every quarter there is that dang mandatory cycle that comes up. And you are all putting together information for that pesky 5,300 report. But when we're looking at that, we do see it from the small credit unions standpoint of sometimes this is the CEO doing it. CEO doesn't necessarily have all the same tools, all the people to make it happen. But either way, even the large credit unions have teams of people who are doing this. This is a task that takes up time that could be spent elsewhere. And so that's why we're really going to wrap this around what hyper automation looks like. And we've talked about automation with our friend Rajesh at Digital Align. And now I get to bring to the stage with me somebody who's pretty cool. And I think everybody in the industry knows this guy. I have yet to meet somebody who has never met him, but I'm going to get the spotlights going here, and I am very excited to bring up to the virtual stage my good friend James Gukeisen, who is the director of Leagues and Advocacy at Trellance. Did I get that right, James?
Zach, thank you.
All right, and I said your last name correct, right?
You nailed it, buddy.
I didn't even ask you before, so I'm glad it just rolls off the tongue now, And I can type it without misspelling it, which is always great. That E and I never get me. So, James, I'm super excited to have you here, and we're going to talk a little bit of the hyper automation. We're also going to talk a little bit of some of the solutions Trellance has put together to solve that. But my first is, we don't necessarily need to do the journey. A lot of people know what your journey, but one of the things that you did last year that I found very intriguing and I followed was you did a speaking circuit talking about 5 emerging technology trends, and emerging in a way that's not necessarily they were just coming to the scene, but maybe into the scene of credit unions. And I love the way that you presented it. I love the way that you pulled it together. But I think, of any and all of them right now, hyper automation is probably where credit unions are. So what brought you to kind of be that person that was talking about that? And do you have a passion around automation and efficiencies?
I have, thank you for that. I have a passion around credit unions and keeping
Ah,
credit unions viable in the new ecosystem where technology is embedded, not just in operations, but in the way we communicate with our members. So, yeah, again, summarizing the journey, right? I've been at this 24 and a half years now. Started out in a cash room at a credit union, and this is really the third iteration, third part of the journey for my career. Starting at a credit union, then getting into network and processing and client management, and now working within really fintech as a non-technologist. So my background is large credit union operations, very comfortable with how credit unions work. And because I am comfortable with how credit unions work, when I'm speaking to credit unions, I like to emphasize that none of us have reached true north, right? None of us have touched that North Star. We all need to improve constantly and be more efficient for our members. So it's really about keeping credit unions viable and not being enamored with the tools and the terminology and the acronyms that are out there that everybody's trying to wow decision makers with, and really just to talk about how these tools can be applied to actually help credit unions.
Did you just tell a room full of credit union people not to love their acronyms? Because I think that's maybe antithetical to to who we are. But
Yep.
no, I get it. I get it. It is sometimes it's there is like a craze and an excitement around it, which I think you should be strategically curious at all times, right? Looking at things
Absolutely.
that are coming through, and having an idea of how it might impact the credit union movement, even if it doesn't seem like surface level it will, but also that strategic curiosity has also got to kick in. This is not the time or the place for us to do that research, right?
Yes.
So I love that. Well, Ben Franklin famously said, and I'm going to not say it quote or word for word, but there's only two things in life that are certain: death and taxes. And I would say that in credit unions, there's a third thing that is certain, and that's creating that 5300 report, right?
Yeah.
And maybe falls along the lines of that quote and his purpose of stating it, but um, when you all were looking, and I'll give you the chance to also kind of speak to the solution that Trellance came to the market with, but I know you all did research in the back end of what does that cycle, that 5300 cycle, actually cost an institution? And I would be curious to know if you do know if larger institutions actually spend more because there's teams of people working on it versus a small credit union where maybe it's just the CEO putting it together. But what does that cost look like, and why does it keep like compounding? It seems like it gets heavier and heavier as we go along.
It does. And yeah, we did look at the costs associated with it, and a half a step back. Keep in mind, we're a technology cooperative owned and operated by credit unions. So our guidance comes from our board, which is all credit union CEOs, large and small. So we're doing what the credit unions are asking us to do, right? They're providing the guidance, and then we're acting on it. So that's when we're developing these solutions. That's where a lot of that comes from, is directly from our credit unions. This is what we need. The direct cost is going to vary greatly depending on the size of the credit union, right? And also, quite frankly, how credit unions define that. So the most basic is salary times 130%. And then you divide that by the number of hours that your team or singular person is investing in maintaining and submitting that report, right? In addition to that, it's all the research associated with it and maintaining whatever you need to maintain internally, right? To make sure you're providing accurate information. And then the verification process can easily reach the tens of thousands of dollars at a larger credit union on an annual basis, right? It just can. FTE cost is a cost. We all know. We all look at our budgets. We get it, right? And if you want good people cost. So what are we doing with those
Yeah.
good people? right? Do we keep them doing things that can be automated, or do we have them doing more value added
Yeah.
activities for the credit union? So it goes from cost to value from a conversation standpoint. Um, Again, kind of that half step back, right? When we talk about hyper automation, we first got to start with just an automated environment with the blocking and tackling, the very simple things,
Mm.
right? We get regulation reporting can be complex, but in our world, complex is kind of our table stakes. We all live in that world. We get it. So there are things before we can really embrace a concept like hyper automation. What are the simple things that we can automate and decentralize the knowledge silos at the credit union that might be hiccups when those highly talented people leave, right? So we're protecting against that exposure as well. Um, there's a lot to it, even though it's a very straightforward type product in this particular scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna make him come off screen or off mic, but Tyler Valentine's on the call with us, and we just had a conversation with him last week. And Tyler, I'm just curious if you looked at your costs before you started implementing some of the work that you're doing, and or you're looking at the ROI, and we'd love just in the chat, you could throw it in there and share with us, because I'm sure that that's a key component. Tyler Valentine is CEO of a small credit union, and both time and money are very valuable. So, well, I appreciate that, and I love it. I love it when a solution has research backed against it. Not that I think any CEO would have doubted that having an automated process to do the 5300 report wasn't going to save something, even if it was just their sanity, right?
Yeah.
So, well, let's go a little, because, like I mentioned, you are doing a thing where you're trying to stay strategically curious and look at what's coming and how it's going to affect, as you should, being a technology co-op within the movement and a QSO. So you said that getting to the hyper automated environment um, isn't a switch that you can just flip, although I know most of us wish there was. And really, there's probably no end date. So unpack that for us. For a CEO, especially, like, do it from the standpoint of, all the promises that we hear from other vendors, right? That say, oh, you got this, and your life will be wonderful because we have AI built into it that's going to automate everything. Tell us
Yeah.
your thoughts on that.
So, context, one of the things I do as a non-technologist is I talk about a lot of technology and those acronyms and those terminologies with board members and C-suite. So I was
Mm,
just out at Luminate in Louisiana for their annual conference, and my session last week was a data and analytics 101 for board and executives, right? All I did in that entire session, right, was define the different acronyms and terminology. I covered things like AGI, AI, uh, talked about automation, hyperautomation, large language models, all these key terms that, with respect, salespeople will kind of drop to try to impress the audience, again, the decision makers, those stakeholders, and just went through page after page, right? I don't read my bullet points, but I provided context on why things are important. So
mhm,
when we talk about that, one of the first things I try to emphasize, especially to decision makers, is AI in and of itself, it's not all that impressive, right? I can throw .ai behind anything and really doesn't mean anything. No matter how fancy my border or my advertisement is, or my content at my booth, just everything that we do pretty much has AI integrated in it, right? It's just a tool that is used to make other tools better or to develop tools that can create efficiencies within the credit union itself or the CUSOs the credit union owns, or the CUSO that the smaller credit unions have come together to organize. So it's just one aspect of many tools, right? And then
Yeah.
it's an evolving aspect of many tools. If nothing else, right, when it comes to the audience and anybody here says is it's still some very basic concepts that apply, regardless of whether or not you're using AI tools, you're just beginning that journey, or you're somewhere along your data governance and your data implementation from analytics, be descriptive or predictive. It's still garbage in, garbage out, right? So you have
Yeah.
to have good structure and good understanding internally. So it's working with partners that are willing to have a conversation with you. Even if it's not us, there's plenty of people out there. I'll give you the NCUA website that has registered QSOs. That's no problem. Make sure that the strategic conversation is happening during that sales or that engagement process, because anybody can implement a tool and say you're magic. You're not. You're absolutely not. Unless they've taken the time to understand what you want to achieve with those AI enabled tools, the
Hmm.
automated process, so that you can better serve your members. Otherwise, it's just a really cool widget or a really neat toy to impress your friends, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's there's a lot there. So when we talk about, again, going back to more of the hyper automation, that larger concept, hyper automation again is true north. We want to automate everything we can so that our internal team is providing those more value added services to our members and potential members. But it starts with automation and understanding your data and your technology stack. You got to have a good firm foundation. You got to find one or two things that return that ROI so that you can train up and cross train your staff so that you can then take advantage of those tools that you're paying for and you're implementing.
Yeah. You started to touch on a concept, and it's not a brand new concept, but it's a concept that was kind of highlighted to me by a CIO in the industry. His name's Jason Tilley. And I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's out in Virginia. He writes some really great articles and series of articles. He's on Substack. He posts them on his LinkedIn, or teasers too, I guess I should say. But Jason has really taken the conversation around technology and not talked about the technology per se. He keeps bringing it up in this concept of operational debt.
Yep.
That not just credit unions, all organizations, but credit unions are really across the board just offenders of building that debt. And one of the key things that he talks about is that it's the just make it work mentality, where you build workarounds, right? And I just said that to Sue about something. I'm like, I know we've got to be able to do that, but don't worry, I got a workaround. And then I was thinking about this. I was like, that's an operational debt for us. Like, we need to just fix it so it's automated.
Yeah.
But he says, in addition to that, if you pay down your operational debt, if you don't have the right decisions being made in the right places, then it's just going to accumulate again. And so, kind of with the next question is kind of, that gap between operations costs and what it actually costs, or what it actually could cost the credit union. What have you seen a credit union kind of have that aha moment and actually narrow that gap a bit? And what was kind of their strategy around it?
So yes, and depending on it often starts with whatever the most current fire is,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Rarely, unfortunately, rarely is it a, a strategic initiative that's being developed and then
Yeah.
implemented and then exploited for the benefit of the members, right? If we go back to something as simple as 5300 automation, um, just working with a small credit union where the CFO was primarily responsible for it. And the workaround that he built, or his tool that he built, it wasn't even a workaround. The tool that he built was this massive complex spreadsheet. They have to go through each tab and then get everything in, make sure it's in the proper file format, check for variances, and then get it sent up. That's a CFO, small but not minute credit union.
Mm-hmm.
Huge amount of time where he needs to be focused on other things. He needs to be working with his marketers and lenders and his other departments to help create efficiencies and to manage that budget at the macro level, right? At the executive level. And he was doing accounting work, right? That was not necessary. When we talked about one particular solution, in this case, the 5300 automation, and again, it's very applicable to most every department, within your credit union. Just the concept of building it once, right, and then having a process in place, an organizational process, not an individual knowledge set, but an organizational process to check for variances, to automate as much as you can, to organize the internal areas, right? So that everybody that needs to know, all those stakeholders are engaged, creates efficiencies, reduces errors, and makes everybody else more comfortable. So yeah, there's that aha. Like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to have this burden. I can focus on actually growing loans to keep the credit union viable. Huge moment, right?
Yeah.
And that literally took days to get to that point. And that, let's put a pin in that days concept, right? One of the other things is those aha moments, those processes, going from the fire to the strategic thinking at the C-suite level is so important. So you
Yeah.
address the individual item that is lacking, right? I would suggest that everybody consider that, unless you're well established and you're already on your data journey and you have good data governance and you have all these tools in place and you're just looking to optimize the little things. Really look for the one or two things that will relieve stress, organizational
Yeah.
stress, and create an immediate ROI, and measure, right? Because if you don't measure it, if you don't track it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's so key. And it's not just defining KPI, right? Key performance indicators. It's making sure that you can document so that, again, we get to organizational strength and not individual knowledge, because
Mm.
those individual knowledge silos are a huge hiccup when they retire or get headhunted.
Uh, that he speaks to that a lot, the knowledge concentration.
Mhm.
It all it does is make your operations fragile. It means that it at the slightest crack, it could just completely shatter.
Yep,
And it may not look like this major crisis at the
yep,
beginning, but it will, that crack spreads. So I love all of that. It's also why, um, as we have been looking at AI, Mitchell Stankovic Associates, we're not a technology company either. I'm not a technologist, James, much like you, right? But we do know the people. We know credit unions in terms of and mission and those things. One of the things that really came to us very quickly around AI was not necessarily wasn't even regulation, even though we're all about governance. It was the fact that implementing this or just automations, which by the way, y'all, AI is automation. So don't always think about AI as using ChatGPT or Claude or any of that, right? And it really starts there. But if you haven't really thought about the foundation of how your business is going to operate with that layer on it, you will not get to a place where it is creating efficiencies for you. It won't happen. You're going to have bottlenecks where AI would not have had bottlenecks, but because you have the people in the wrong places making the wrong decisions at the wrong time, it's going to just impact it. And then you'll have the detractors. You're going to have the people who don't get it, who see it as a replacement where it really truly isn't, if you start looking at that foundation and making that adjustment, that change, that restructure of what working alongside automation really looks like.
And that's working alongside or investing and working with and
Hmm.
ingraining these newer technologies into your credit union is key, right? I said let's put a pin in that the days. One of the things I talk about when I talk to credit union decision makers and boards alike is the speed at which we make decisions. I'm not talking about addressing fires and rallying members to write their senators or all those things that we're good at. I'm talking about operationally. So I would, and again, I don't tell anybody what to think. I do present some things for people to think about. You may want to consider. One of those is that credit unions are competitors, fintechs. I would suggest to this group that those fintechs will take 5 days to make a decision. The banks will take 5 weeks. Credit unions will take 5 months to make that same decision. Not because we are unknowledgeable, but because we are still catching up when it comes to operational automation, striving toward that true north of hyper automation, so that our processes are slower and we have less ability to streamline those decision making processes that help us stay
Yeah.
competitive,
Yep.
right? If we're all doing busy work, are we managing teams that are doing busy work that can be taken care of with a bot? Maybe we should reconsider that approach.
Yep. I agree. I agree. I can't we're gonna have a Q&A session and I'm gonna bring up a specific example with you, James. But before we close out the official session here, I'm actually not going to give you that last question I have because I think it's kind of just, it's fluff at this point with our conversation. So my question is what's um the one governance and or ownership piece that credit unions have got to look at, in addition to the foundation building, the restructuring of people and humans?
Yeah. I would say data governance. You got to have really good data governance in place, large or small, it doesn't matter. And the reason is that in today's economy, today's ecosystem, your members' data is potentially the most valuable asset you have on
Yeah.
the books. Your members and your potential members are communicating with you, depending on the size of your credit union, literally millions of times a day, right? It used to be branch hours and it was contact center hours. Now it's all data exchange, especially with the next generation of borrowers, right? And homeowners. They are communicating through their app, they're communicating through text, through your landing page on your website, through your splash screen on your ITM. They're communicating digitally and they're communicating often. That's all data. That's all data on your core, on your LOS, on your cardholder activity report, all those different platforms and tools that you use. Do you have good governance around that? If not, find a partner. I'd love to be your partner, but there are 100 partners out there, right? I don't have an iPhone 1. I don't have a Pokemon Go app that is new and unique and revolutionary. A lot of what we provide for credit unions is a lot of the grind. It's the necessary grind to create good data governance and to have those meaningful conversations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of bells and whistles, there's a lot of gizmos, but really focus on data governance and understanding the value your data has to you as a member, and not only as a member, but an executive driving your credit union's growth.
I love it. Thank you. I very much appreciate that, and I completely agree. I think we're going to uncover um, more around what governance actually looks like. I think that there's things that we know of now, but I think as we move forward into this, that we're going to realize, oh, we're gonna need some processes around what happens there, even though we had no idea it was gonna do that. So, well, thank you, James. As we close up, one of the items I want to do is share a QR code on the screen. For those of you who don't know, Trellance is also a member of or a supporting organization of CUS and provides the 5300 solution as a solution provider. So I would encourage you, go in there, check it out, take a look if it, and hopefully it is something that can help you begin your automation process potentially and get you to a place where you can start looking at things a little bit differently. And at the very least, my CEOs of your small credit unions, let's free up some hours out of your day, so you can get out there and do what you probably really need to be doing, which is that business development and getting out there with your community. We know that's where you're best at. You don't need to be behind a screen looking at these numbers. This is something that can be done for you. So we're going to transition into Q&A. Please, if you're sticking around, we would love to hear from you. Both James and I are, as we said, not technologists. However, we are nerds. And so we'd like to be aware of, talk about other things that are happening out there. It doesn't mean that we're going to give you advice, but we'll definitely speak to it from our viewpoint. And I mentioned to you, James, I wanted to kind of bring this up and give maybe an easy way to understand that final understanding before implementing automation, and where vendors, business partners can be detrimental to that process. We are a smaller boutique consulting company, right? We are not a multi people organization. We have a core group that sits here. We implement with about 20 contractors throughout the U.S. Actually, throughout the world. Some of them are that help us with different pieces of the work that we do. So with that, we have always operated in a slim capacity, and and so we always look to do so in that way. Doesn't ever change our impact or how we can the things that we can do. But I am my ADHD does let me do the squirrel moments of shiny brand new. So it's like the programs that I use, and it's like, oh, our AI function can do this, and I just get excited. I'm like, great, look at what it'll do. It's gonna save me all the time. And then I get in there, I start to learn about it, I really look at it, I think, and I go, I just spent 4 hours researching it, and it's not going to do anything for me in the process that I have right now. And I will do that consistently. And then finally I said, nah, stop. And so what I started doing was utilizing my generative AIs, and I go back and forth between Chat and Claude. And I use both in tandem many times. But what I started to do was take one process at a time and figure out where I could just automate it so that I could just go somewhere, automate it, it's done, I pick it up. And then just this last weekend, I finally took a look at all of that and I went, now can I put this all together? Can I do something with this in a way that now it's going to run this across the board? And did created a operational web-based app that essentially now I put in information, it generates the things that I need automatically. My touch points have gone from, we'll say, from 20 to 4 in terms of where I have to go in and do things and approve and whatever. And it's like having a team behind me doing
Yeah.
these steps that I was doing. But the
Mhm.
only way for me to get there was to think about what my operations looked like,
Yeah.
where I could actually automate that, and piece it together as a puzzle. And the great thing about this stuff is that it's like an API. You can piece together automations in lots of different ways. But if you don't have it in the right order, you're going to be screwed. So, it's very similar. I know that's a singular human being. Credit
Yeah.
unions think of it in the same way of don't just
Right.
throw on an automation because, oh my gosh, it's going to help. You've got to look at what does that workflow look like right now? And is it just going to unoil that well-oiled machine that you have the humans doing?
So you talk about unpacking. There's so much to unpack there, right? So lots of things jump out at me. First being, as we built this process, you're unique, you're special. MSA is great. there are other Zachs in credit union world, right?
Yep.
Exploring similar things. From an executive standpoint, a credit union executive standpoint, C-suite, two pieces. One, make
Uh,
sure your Zach is not creating a knowledge silo,
uh-huh.
right? Make sure that they are sharing that information. And then two, as an executive, ensure that you're the one champion those individuals to share that information,
Uh,
because if they don't feel comfortable talking about technology, they're going to clam up. They're not going to share. They're not going to help develop those improvements across the board that are often free and low hanging fruit,
yeah.
right? So make sure that at a minimum they feel comfortable talking about things that can be better internally so that we're not hitting those knowledge, creating a new type of knowledge silo.
Yeah. Oh, and it oh, when it comes to the humans and supporting the people who maybe don't have that voice, I am all in for that. And that is a great point, James, that create the sandbox where your employees are bringing the way that they think to this table. Because I think that's probably one of the greatest capacities AI actually has, is
Sure.
that you and I and Tyler and Gary Perez on the call and Linda White, we can go into a sandbox problem and we will come out of it with AI with five completely different solutions. And all of those solutions will be viable, will be efficient, will be so the thing is that it's not, you cannot rely on one person or one team to think about this. You let your people develop how their minds think, and that's where AI, I truly think it can excel, because if you are not just somebody who's like, well, I need to prompt and I need to prompt this way and then I need to go, that's great, you're still going to get
Yep.
results, right? But if you have somebody
Yep.
who is like me, who had number one started AI, didn't even know prompts were a thing until like 6 months afterwards, and then was like, oh, I was supposed to be doing it that way. um I created a completely different way of interacting with it. And if you aren't doing it, you're losing out. You're losing out on talent that you didn't even know was there. And probably that person didn't even know was there.
Yeah. And there's again, there's kind of, not kind of, there are a couple things here, right? Um, and get the focus here is on 5300. We have this inexpensive solution that we want to get out there because it's a good relationship builder, right? Drives immediate value, creates opportunities for credit unions to do more important things and be more comfortable with their
Mm.
technology stack.
Yeah.
There's two parts to that as well. Both are things I've covered with credit unions literally in the last 2 weeks. The first part being those fires that we talk about. The more we automate and at an organizational level, so the knowledge and the training is there, the processes are there. And again, I know we have to have experts, but kind of push past the silos, the more we are available as a group
Yeah.
organizationally to address the fires, right? We have,
Yep.
I give you the fire and then the development, having a lot of conversations around VMware, right? That virtual machine provider, they got acquired, and now
Hmm.
credit unions and other industries are seeing 800, 1200% increase in the cost. So they're all scrambling to address that, right? You can better address that if you have a good, solid, automated foundation, good
Yes.
policies, good governance, things like that. You can react better, right? So the conversations we're having with credit unions, this is a fire. I'm not going to pay 800% more just because they were bought by another company, so they could charge me 800% more, right? Let's address that. The other thing is development. You talked about you're experimenting with AI. Everybody should be experimenting with
Oh,
AI.
yes.
Trellance, Trellance has an AI lab now that synthesizes data um, from the credit union, and then you can play in a really safe sandbox to work on products, services, development, whatever the case may be. When you're developing, when you're playing with AI, make sure that information, especially if you're dealing with member
Yeah.
information, is in a secure place, right? No, if it's free, be wary. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That sandbox thing is very simple to set up
yeah,
for your employees, and encourage, don't discourage, because the ones who
yep,
are using it already, they're gonna use it behind your back anyways.
yep,
So figure out a way where it's integrated, and there it's a kind of this other sense of authenticity of showing up to work. Don't make them hide it. Have them come there with this excitement of, but let's try. And you will need to have, things in place of, okay, you know, play in the sandbox, but we don't want to spend hours and hours and hours working on something and not getting actual work done, because work still needs to get done too. So,
yep,
really, really great points. This conversation went in a direction, James, that our conversations usually do.
yep,
They never start end where we start them. And I think we usually go off-roading about
yep,
5 minutes in anyway. So, but I think that that's the whole point of these friction points, is that we start to build upon where we're actually seeing it happen, versus just
yep.
talking about it from an academic standpoint. So, any final words for
Great.
our audience as we close out today?
Mm, Data governance is important. AI is table stakes. Get to work. Even
I
if it's somebody else, get on it because it's going to make your credit union viable over the next 2 decades.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to my final piece, and I'll add on to one of the things that you said, that with the buying of the software, the increase, this AI world, you're putting in a new engine. But guess what? The gas prices, and I'm going to be repeating what Ryan Stankovic here at our office said in a conversation, was the gas prices for this, they are not going down. They're going to continue to go up. So the use of this is going to get more and more expensive. You're going to see latency and lag as more and more people are digging into it. So being as efficient with the automation and this usage is going to be just as important.
Yep.
I think we'll hit a place where we'll plateau that, and then it'll probably democratize a little bit. This is very, very much me in my head seeing things in a very utopian future around it. But can't predict it. We'll never know. And but it could be here tomorrow as fast as things are moving. So just be prepared, and do your best to have conversations like this with anybody who's willing to have them, because that's really where you start to pull it together. No one's truly an expert in this, because it is changing so rapidly fast that there isn't any
Constantly.
way
Yep.
somebody can keep up and be the doctorate, right? But so learn it the way your mind learns it, and bring that to the table as well. So thank you, James. I appreciate you. We appreciate Trellance, all of the support and work you do for the credit union industry. Again, we are taking a break. We wish you all a wonderful Independence Day and 4th of July, celebrating our 250 years of being in this wonderful world as the United States of America. And we cannot wait to have you back on July 9th, Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific, as we kick that off. Be on the lookout. We are going to have a co-hosted deep dive webinar series with Frank Diekman and CU Daily, called the AI Imperative. And it is going to bring some of those who are doing work differently, and is going to be a series that you're not going to want to miss. And we won't have it, it'll be in tandem with our friction points, so you can catch it all. All right. And with that, everyone, have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you all soon.
So